Okay, I want to talk a little bit more about John chapter 29. And we've already talked about how John the Baptist in his public ministry, he looks up and he sees Jesus coming toward him. And he utters this big, beautiful, prophetic proclamation about the Messiah. He says, "Behold, the Lamb of God that takes away the sins of the world." And I want to talk about what this means, but I also want to point out that I don't even think John the Baptist fully understood the full implications of what he was saying. It was common for even the Old Testament prophets to not fully understand the things they prophesied. 1 Peter chapter 1 tells us that the prophets often searched diligently trying to discern who these prophecies were about, and that even the angels didn't fully understand and long to look into this salvation that was prophesied about our generation. So John says, "Behold the Lamb of God that takes away the sins of the world." But it's interesting that in the Mosaic covenant, it wasn't the blood of lambs, but the blood of bulls and goats that were to atone for our sin. But the writer to the Hebrews in chapter 10 tells us what the problem was with this sacrificial system. It says in verse 11 that the priests stood daily in the temple, continually offering the same sacrifices that could never take away sin. In other words, they would offer this offering of atonement for the sins of the people, and then what would happen is that the people would just sin some more. And so another sacrifice was needed. And this happened day after day after day for generations. But it says in verse 12, "But when Christ had offered a single sacrifice for sin, himself, he sat down at the right hand of God." In verse 14, it says, "For by a single offering, he's perfected for all time those who are being sanctified." This is really good news for us. It gives depth and meaning to Jesus' words as he hung upon the cross, about to give up his spirit, paying the full penalty for all of our transgressions and iniquity and sin by his blood upon the cross. He said, "It is finished." In other words, no longer is there any sacrifice needed for sin. If we confess with our mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in our hearts that God has raised him from the dead, we will be saved. And when we mess up tomorrow, he doesn't have to go back to the cross to get some more blood, because the price has been paid finally and fully one time upon the cross. It is finished. When he had made a single offering for sin, he perfected for all time those who are being sanctified. So John, maybe he didn't fully understand, but he proclaimed this beautiful prophecy: "Behold the Lamb of God that takes away the sins of the world."